Tubers, welcome back for another adventure. And for those of you who play in this business, you know that there's kind of a shortage of used all-terrain vehicles out there. Even junk that doesn't run is going for a lot of money. And I'm basically showing you this Sun-L, and I'm making the comment about it because broken people seem to be trying to get $200, $300, $400 for these things. I paid 25 bucks for this one. All-terrain vehicles that look something like this. You got people out there trying to get $400 or $500 for it because it's a Honda three-wheeler. I mean, stuff is just crazy. So given that, you kind of start adjusting your your desires, your wants, your what could I actually get for the money that I'm willing to spend. And there's a person on Facebook and also Craigslist out by me who has, this is known as a Linhai Big Horn. It's got a few other names also. It's made in China, kind of a little bit of a Polaris clone. Anyway, he's got one of these. It's the four-wheel drive version. It's a little newer than this. It's a lot better looking than this. It's blue. You guys could go look it up. He's in Walden, New York once again. He's trying to sell it, right? And I guess the exercise I want to do, and I want to put it on video so I don't weaken and go out and buy the thing. I want to tell you why I shouldn't buy it. And maybe one of you will hear me and say, oh, no, I'm going to go buy it, which will help this guy out. Or maybe y'all will say, you know what, Harvey, you're absolutely right. So let's get started and talk about these things in general. These things here have a 260 water-cooled engine, right? That's what's that way. And the transmission that you guys could see is separately mounted that way. That's kind of a bit like the Polaris. It's got this shifter here. This one does high, low, and reverse. And it's a belt drive. What these things are prone to, as the carburetor acts up, and carburetors always act up on the China stuff. As the carburetor acts up, they have a tendency to, the engines race a bit. So then when you go to pop it in gear, all right, because they won't start if the interlocks are working in anything but neutral. But then as you go to pop it into gear, you have a tendency to beat up on the transmission, right? The one he's selling is missing this shift lever. And that's a $70 eBay item. You know, by the time you get it to the house and pay tax, make it 80 bucks. So that means if you get the all-terrain vehicle for free, this is the first $80. It needs a battery, because they always need a battery. That 80 takes you to 130, right? And he says the wiring is also hacked up, as this one was. Another bit of a concern with these things is they're complicated. And by that I mean, not only do you have the ignition situation, but you got the interlocks to make sure you don't start in reverse or any of that other stuff. Obviously, you know, with my hack, you could kind of get around all that stuff. But now you have an all-terrain vehicle that if you sell it, right, you're selling it without the interlocks. It'll start in gear and, you know, take right off and get into all kinds of trouble. So hacking the wire harness, you got to think about, are you going to do that? Is it the wise thing to do? But let's say you hack the wire harness and you get it running, you get it started, and all that other stuff. You still have another couple of obstacles to climb over. These things are water cooled, and they have a radiator obviously, and they have a couple of fans that electrically cool that down, and they kind of have some overheat circuitry to shut the engine down before you cook it and junk like that. I think it's also got a light on the dashboard that tells you when that gets into trouble. So that's a whole load of new electronics that now you got to kind of figure out your way around that. And that's doable, by the way. You could go out to eBay, and they have what I call mechanical thermo switches. You know, when they sense heat, they'll turn a fan on. They go for about 20 bucks each. There are 2 fans, so you got to make a decision whether or not you're going to turn them off with that. I stopped working on this thing, and some of you folks have asked about it. Why did you stop working on it? Or, you know, I have questions, and, you know, could you work on it again? Well, I'm kind of working my way up to that. I stopped working on it when I realized the fans were seized, and I got to take the fans out of there and do something with the bearings to make them unseized, right? One could make the decision when you turn it on, it'll just run the fans all the time. That's one way around it. But if the fans are seized, you know, you can turn them on. You'll just drain your battery. This thing seems to have one heck of an alternator. It's a 3-phase. And just between 1 phase and ground, it didn't light up a light bulb, a filament, an Edison light bulb bright, but it did light it up. I imagine between a couple of the phases, it would really brighten it up pretty good. I mean, you're only putting like 50-60 volts on a 100-watt light bulb, but it lit it up pretty well. So there is some power coming off of there. Running the fans continuously shouldn't be that big a deal. This thing is a monster. I mean, it's huge. And you might be looking at it saying, really? The thing is big. It is 78 inches from rack to rack. It is heavy. I bet you, you know, it's got that huge rear end in it, plus that monster of a transmission. You know, you see the transfer case down there. I assume with the four-wheel drive, I do not know, but there's probably another shaft that comes off of there and goes on up. So this thing is one brute of a heavy monster. What one could do, and there's a guy who did it on the internet, he built himself a lawn truck out of one of these. He basically took all the junk off of it. He took the engine out of it, and he put in your typical air-cooled engine. I'm not sure if he put in the, you know, cheap Harbor Freight 6.5 horsepower. He did some machining on the motor, so he was able to put the torque converter that's on this Linhai motor onto his motor, his, you know, typical air-cooled motor. If you do something like that, you're really getting a lot of the trouble out of there, right? You don't have the radiator anymore, you don't have the fans anymore, right? You don't have all the wiring and horse manure that goes with that. You don't have water bottles and hoses. Yeah, I wanted to make this video to kind of talk myself out of buying it, and I think I've succeeded in my quest. When it comes to lawn trucks, I got a whole load of other lawn trucks I should be doing something with, from the Taylor Undone to a couple of the all-terrain vehicles that are sitting around that I've been thinking of turning into lawn trucks. So I'm not thinking I need a second, you know, a second project that involves cutting and pasting. And to go a bit further, right, one is assuming that the transmission is good. Why did somebody take this lever assembly off? It's not like it's running. He also indicated that he could not find neutral, and he's from, you know, you do some research on the people selling to see what they know about stuff, and he said, quote, I want to get it off my driveway. But he's kind of a handy kind of person. He does small engines and so forth. So I'm beginning to wonder if the transmission isn't just blown up also. So, back to framing what you're up to. Should you go and buy it, you will be getting some decent racks that are worth something, some decent plastic, a decent frame. His tires looked pretty good. So, you know, what are those things worth to you? I mean, you could completely gut it out, but now your problem is you have a shaft drive, and if you can't get that transmission to work, you're going to have a tough time adapting your basic Harbor Freight engine to go on there, right? Your $100 Harbor Freight, right? I mean, I guess you can kind of put it on there sideways, right? And install one that has the torque converter. You know, you buy the $100 or the $200 torque converter with forward and reverse on it, and just kind of hack it up to the shaft. I guess one could do that, make it like a Recon. But this monster is heavy. 6.5 horsepower. If you gear it low enough, it'll move it. But this is definitely a belt burner. It's a heavy monster. I don't know. For people who have them, let me know what you guys think. I guess I should. I own this. I should either get it running or do something with it. It just became frustrating because it was like, okay, all I need to do is get it running. And I managed to do that. And then, what else do I have to do? Oh, the fans are seized. Oh, the wiring has a bunch of corrosion. So the thermostat for the fans are no good. Plus the fans are no good, right? So it just seemed that this thing was going to be a bottomless pit. You guys could see I already changed the switches here. I mean, the electronics, the wiring on this China stuff, especially if you get something complicated, the wiring really is a problem. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think I'm gonna pass on it. It's just not wise. If I have Linhai I want to work on, I guess I should just shut up and work on this one. I want to thank everybody for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. I often suggest go out and buy an all-terrain vehicle. Maybe try to stick with the Hondas. Please remember, keep your feet down, get your heads up, and get out there and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.